Hey, what's up, everybody? You know what time it is. NGNWR. Back on the radio here once again. Yeah. Word up to all my homies out there. On my home skillets. Home skillet dog slice. G-Funk dog. Skillet Homes. Got a great show coming up for you today. All kinds of stuff, just all across the board. Plenty of you knows. Plenty of likes. You're listening to No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling Radio. And here we go. Let's start. Hunka hunka burning love, Yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Hey everybody, it's The Brand, your excellent host. Another great episode of NGNWR Radio. Hanging out here without a net, without a plan, just bringing it to you. I hit record and we're ready to go. My lovely wife is hanging out. Say hi, babe.
Hi.
I don't know if you can hear her or not. She's in the background. We'll have her on the show at some point, talking about something. Well, maybe, I don't know, Days of Our Lives or something like that. But like I said, this show is going to be kind of without a net, here at the beginning. There's a few news topics that I want to go over. Nothing too in-depth. There wasn't really a whole lot that happened this last week, unfortunately, in the world of wrestling. Well, I guess it is a good week, in the fact that there's no scandals or anything like that going on. No, major passings. So that's definitely a good thing. But it's really just kind of more of the same. WWE's on that fast track to SummerSlam. Cards shaping up pretty nicely. That's one thing that's going to be different about this week. I'm not sure if we're going to actually go into, covering Raw at all. I figure, if you're going to watch anything during the week, you're probably going to watch Monday Night Raw. At least most of our listeners do, and so breaking it down, sometimes I just don't want to even go there. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that today. One thing we are going to do, I'm going to have my good friend on later, Vito The Ref. He's going to be on here with me, and we're going to talk about a very dear subject to both of us. We're going to talk about the Attitude Era in what was the WWF, in those days, of course, WWE now. Going to talk, and people talk about the Attitude Era a lot. It's a subject that's almost beaten to death, but what we're going to kind of do to give it a nice little spin is we're going to talk about the unsung heroes of that Attitude Era. Some of the guys that, we all know about Steve Austin. We all know about The Rock. We know about all those guys. What we want to get into is who else really entertained us, who else made the show tick in certain ways, and we'll get into certain angles and certain matches and things that were key to us. It should be pretty fun, a little bit of a different take on what's going on as far as that goes. I myself, like I said earlier, we don't really have a plan, especially for the intro to the show. My monologue, if you will, is what I like to call it, because it's the part I'm always at least doing by myself here at the beginning of the show. That's where I get to kind of talk to you people that listen to the show. Thank you for the people that do. There's the views are kind of hit and miss, but that's the thing. I'm going to keep doing it. That way people just don't think it's some kind of a weird thing. You keep going for it. You keep expanding, and there's going to be some exciting stuff, I promise you, here in the future. Getting to work on getting some interviews. I can get those interviews, somehow, some way. Definitely got some special things planned for NGNWR in the future, special topics, different things like that. But don't have much of a plan for today because it's been kind of a hectic week, I'll tell you, here in my life. Since this is the brand's chance to have a personal chat with y'all, trying to maintain a normal job, trying to do this. Also lamenting in music. I've mentioned a few times on the show my band Stone Tyler. We had a pretty big weekend last weekend. We played a show at this festival called Freedom in the Forest down in this little town called Glendale down in southern Oregon. And that was interesting. Of course, sound was really good for that show. Nice little show, good folks. A nice little precursor to what we did on Saturday. We went up to Vancouver Brewfest and rocked the house out there to, I don't know, I want to estimate, they said that the attendance for the whole weekend, Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday afternoon, the whole attendance for the weekend was about 6,000. So, I want to speculate that Saturday, the day that they were there, was the busiest day. But let's just say for just craps and giggles, that it was equal all days. About 2,000 people we got to play for up there in Vancouver for the Brewfest, which was awesome. Playing over 30 songs of original music, written mostly by our singer Patrick Reedy, and we have some other songs that we've all written, of course, and the composition. That's the thing, even though they're written by him, the composition of the songs we've all came up with together as a unit. So it's very cool. This thing that we grew. It's also our coming up on our 2-year anniversary of being a band, and it's just kind of like, wow, 2 years in, we're able to get this good gig up in Vancouver, and we got it based on music, original music written by us. And that's the thing, that's something that, if I can kind of get on my soapbox for a bit here during my monologue and talk about anything, I want to go ahead and throw that out in the ballpark right now. We're from this podunk town of Roseburg, Oregon. And small towns being small towns, what they are, there's a lot of politics that go on as far as the music here. I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but anyone that's from around here does need to know that, because that's the thing. We get this huge gig in Vancouver based off of music. This person that was putting it together had faith in us to do that. There's certain venues in our own hometown that wouldn't give us that big of an opportunity. It would go to one of the local cover bands or something like that, and it's strictly due to politics. It's strictly due to who you know and who you're talking with, and anyone that's out there and a musician. of course, knows that. If you don't know that by now, then you've got some lessons ahead of you, buddy. Let me tell you. It's a rough road to hoe out there, but it's really that's my whole point is, in Stone Tyler, we went up there to Vancouver, played for 2,000 plus people in this Brewfest, and it had a great time. Our music went over great. In the long run, the benefits of it, are unknown. We could be definitely, could be people talking about us on the streets of Vancouver right now. I don't know, hopefully. And that's the whole thing, but that's why that's definitely why you do it. That's why we do it anyway. Just trying to get these songs out there. I'm really excited to have our 2-year anniversary show, and then hopefully go into the studio, finish up this record that we started, and can't seem to to finish for the life of us. But and that's the thing. Like I said, have over 30 something songs that we want to get out there and get recorded, and it's going to happen sooner than later. So that's the good news. Anyway, I'll quit the shameless, self-promotion and talking about myself and all these great things we're doing, but there's so much stuff. I mean, beyond that, personal life, great. Kids are doing great. My daughter's ready to go back to school. My little son is about to turn a year old, ladies and gentlemen, and I just can't believe it, growing up through my very eyes, and it's just very amazing to me just to see his growth, and I can't believe he's a year old already, almost. It's really just taking me aback. So anyway, things are going good in the old brand world. Can't complain, of course, like a fella says. And anyway, getting back to the matters at hand, like I said, there's not a lot that happened this week as far as notable things in the world of wrestling. Not a whole lot of stuff going on there at all. So, same, more of the same. And nothing's really sticking out to me now. There's not anything I really want to talk about. See, Gigi gets eliminated from Tough Enough. Big deal. CM Punk's fighting with some guy on Twitter. The UFC guy, yeah. Just a lot of just little, actually really unnewsworthy week as far as anything goes. But like I said earlier, maybe that's a good thing. It's kind of nice to have... one thing I will speak on. I'm glad I came across this real quick. It'll be nice to kind of see the update on this here. Okay, I'm not even going to comment on that because apparently it's a dead story. Anyway, not much going on. So I think, unless something really jumps out to me here, we're going to go ahead and take a little break. Come back, and we're going to have my guest, Vito, on the show. The referee Vito worked some indie shows with this guy. He's a good friend of mine, going way back. A huge wrestling fan. He's going to talk about the Attitude Era with me. And not just the Attitude Era, but the unsung heroes of the Attitude Era and much more. And, that's about it. We'll go ahead and throw to a break real quick, and we'll be right back on NGNWR.
just hold it there. Forgive myself from the chance that I have, but I never really dare. Taking memory, riding streets that plague my mind. How the hell did you end up here with this kind of life? We sell our soul, you sell yourself, and the prayer gone cheap. A dirty bill from the one who dares to rape your needs. Another face, another name, who cares? It's all the same. How long can we neglect what's wrong? Tell me who's to blame? Some other fear, some other fear. Letting it tell about you, that's what I make your moves. Only by the silence tries to tell me some other fear, some other fear. Letting it tell about you, that's what I make your moves. Accept your flaws. Tell me who's to blame, blame, blame. Always a life forgotten child, trapped deep in shame. Too many lost to ever care about, walk blind in vain. An individual fall through the cracks, bent down in time. Your residents of blind inhabitants, this is who we are. Some other fear, some other fear. Letting it tell about you, that's what they make the wounds. Only blind silence tries to tell me some other fear, some other fear. Letting it tell about you, that's what I make your wounds. Accept your flaws. Tell me who's to blame, blame, Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds. Letting it tell about you, the truth and lick your wounds.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gents, boys and girls. The Brand back here on NGNWR, No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling Radio, joined by my very special guest, my brother from another mother, Vito the Ref. Vito, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
That's awesome, man. I'm really glad that you came out here to the Hicks Estate, all the way out here in beautiful Melrose, Oregon, having a hell of a time, having us some nice soft drinks, some nice herbal refreshments as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great. You know, things are dry as a bone out here in Oregon, but we're hanging in there, right?
Yeah, dry as a bone and flaming high, but to stay below the smoke, we're all right.
Right. So, Vito's on here with me. You know, what we're going to do, what we want to talk about, the meat of the subject, as I like to call it. We're talking about the Attitude Era.
Greatest era ever. Greatest wrestling era.
Well, that's arguable. I would argue that with you. But I couldn't tell you what the greatest era is either, but I don't know. It's up there, you know what I mean? I remember it fondly.
We say TV era. That would work.
Hey, there you go. You know, or at least in our lifetimes, you know what I mean? We're all around, you know, we're both around that 30 years old mark, right? So,
right in there somewhere.
Yeah, just, you know, give or take, round up or round down a few years, you know, and you can do the math. But this was a very special time, you know, and we want to talk about the Attitude Era in a different way, not just the things that everybody knows about, you know, Stone Cold, The Rock, DX, all the things that are talked about just to death already. We want to talk about some of the unsung heroes of that era. Also talk about some of our favorite moments just in general and things that stick out in our minds about it. Because it was such a great time, of course, for us to even be watching something like that, in that time frame, of course, being young adolescents, if you will. We're full of attitude as kids, right?
Exactly. The Attitude Era reflected us at that age for sure.
Yeah, right. And I think and that's why it clicked so well.
Click.
Right? Don't mean to drop the click, but yeah, there you go. And that's where it all really starts. If you just kind of want to throw it out there, Vito, my man, it really all kind of started with, like I said, I don't want to go into DX a whole lot, but they really did champion it in. At least I think really you can point to the formation of DX as pretty much the start of it, right?
Yeah, when the Click split and DX and NWO came from that, which led to, of course, the greatest wrestling era, in my opinion.
Well, right, and that's the whole thing. They championed it in, and of course it was a slow start. It was a slow burn. Getting into the whole thing, especially. It took them a few months to really hit their stride, but of course we're talking late 1997. Yeah. Of course, shortly after that, the Montreal Screwjob happened.
In my opinion, that's when the Attitude Era started, because with the Montreal Screwjob came, Bret Screwed Bret, and Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon is what I think started that era.
And that's when they really were able to start going for it. Once they got Bret, it's kind of funny. Once Bret left the company, it was almost kind of like when your dad leaves town or something, or or maybe when you're. I guess a better analogy would be when your parents come over to visit. Like your mom or dad, and everything's really tame, and you got to be uber proper and all that. And then once they leave, it's all right, it's time to party, let's bust out the kegs. Let's, and that's kind of what Vince and the WWE did once Bret was out the door. It was the floodgates were open and they were off to the races doing whatever kind of raunchy, dirty, controversial, whatever you want to call it, week after week. You had to tune in, and that was the whole point, just to see what they were going to do next.
Yeah, Bret Hart was kind of the moral cap, like you said, when that cap busted off, it went through the roof.
Right? Yeah.
All the rules were out the door, pretty much.
And that's where it all starts, right there. That's when it really kicked into gear. Of course, Bret goes out the door. A lot of things are going on, but we're talking about unsung heroes of that time frame. Of course, we all know about Rock, Stone Cold, and DX. There are some guys that stand out in my mind, maybe that didn't quite live up to their full potential. Maybe is where I think we'll go with this. A lot of these guys I want to talk about were guys that debuted more or less right around that time. A little bit later on, we're talking after Stone Cold won the title in March of '98, and that's when you saw a whole different shift. And then you saw Shawn Michaels go, and you saw the reformed DX come out, and that was when they really started to kick into gear with the new characters. Shortly after that, that's when we saw Val Venus debut.
Val Boski, yeah.
Right. Val, Edge, of course, Edge is, lived up to his potential and more. I think he's probably the one case that, but if he was just getting his.
That was was a solid slow burn for sure.
His career started right there. He debuted. You also got to talk about guys. Edge and Christian pretty much debuted at the same time, but the guy that was responsible, for bringing them in as far as storyline wise in their debut, you want to talk about a guy, an unsung hero. What about Gangrel?
You talk about Edge, and he really got his up. People really started to notice who he was in the Brood with, like you said, Gangrel and longtime friend Christian, of course.
Yeah, no, that's the whole thing right there. I mean, here we have, Edge, of course, went on to do what he did. Went on to be, world champion. So did Christian. In TNA and WWE, be the champion of the company, in some form. You also, but then you look at Gangrel, and he didn't really, after the Brood, they just kind of grouped him in with the corporate ministry, and then after that, he was done. He was gone. I'm not sure what exactly the story was on why he was either not renewed or what have you, but he's a guy that kind of faded out,
Yeah, Gangrel was that weird entertaining, he had the whole vampire gimmick, and he's something with White Wolf something or other. I don't know what it is, but some company actually owns a character, I guess, and I think he's mostly still doing indie scenes, I think.
Right. No, he is on the indie scene, here on the West Coast. He actually works a lot here in our neck of the woods in Salem for the West Coast Wrestling Connection promotion. And which I believe he's based out of the Bay Area. So that, that's why you see him work these West Coast indie dates. So he's still out there and going, of course, but you just wonder why a guy never got his shake, because he was the leader of the Brood at the time, and he started that whole thing. And I swear that music, that was just, he had such cool entrance music,
The entrance all together was cool. The through the floor with the fire and the, like you said, the bone chilling music.
I think we all did we've all done the Brood walk at some point in time. In our lives, you know what I mean? You put on that song on the CD or what have you, and and you walked with your friends through the house with like a glass of, like a wine glass or something, and you pretended you were the Brood. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I did the blood spit thing, or
right, yeah.
Cousins didn't like it. That's who I grew up with,
Yeah, that might piss the cousins off just a little bit. But, he's a guy that debuted around that time that definitely, getting back to another guy, Val Venus. He's a guy, he, of course, went on to claim the Intercontinental title. Okay, well, wait a minute. Before I get off of Gangrel for a second, I did want to throw this at you real quick. Thinking back to it now, of course, we all know how the Brood got grouped in with the corporate ministry, and then it all just kind of fizzled out from there. You didn't see Gangrel after that. Edge and Christian, of course, stayed in the company.
All those guys really struggled after the corporate ministry. Even the little guys like Midian, he had he had that early start, and after the corporate ministry, a lot of those guys just lost it.
Well, and that's the thing. They kind of grouped a lot of guys and thrown in a guy. Looking back on it, I don't think it was a great thing to have them lumped in there with the corporate ministry. Going back on it, what I would have liked to have seen is, we should have seen them feud with The Undertaker at some point, like some kind of actual serious, if they would have gave... think about that. Think if they would have gave Gangrel a shot, like in a program with Undertaker, back then, and how that might have changed the course, for the guy. I mean, that would have been interesting. I wonder why that never happened. You know what I mean?
you never really know. Probably it's politics. It always does that. But he could have had a big scene. That's what you say.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. There's a lot of, we've all played armchair booker, a time or two. Don't tell me that you haven't. And that's my armchair booker moment of the week right there.
If I was writing this stuff, you know what I'd do? That old line,
And now that I'm thinking about it, they may have even had like a little mini feud for them to even get in the ministry in the first place. Maybe like one Raw or something where he like took them out.
I do remember it was a 6-man match. Actually, it was the Brood along with was it Midian and Viscera, and also the Undertaker in that 6-man. But like you said, he just sat up there and watching the match. He didn't even get in the ring and wrestle with the Brood. So maybe that's a reason why he didn't get that programmer.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. You look back on it. I think there could have been some definite, money made there, especially with how far they were taking some of the things with the Undertaker, which, we'll get to a little later. Of course, when we talk about what I think is one of mine and Vito's top moments. I mean, if we're ranking them, maybe not number one, but we'll cover that in a second, though, because I still want to kind of go in like timeline form here, if you know what I mean. And we're still kind of talking about 1998. Of course, what I was, big debuts, Val Venus, Gangrel. Later on in the year, he had Edge and Christian, this and that. One guy that was steadily present, though, wasn't a debut during this time. Let me throw out another name here for you. What about Ken Shamrock?
Oh, Ken Shamrock, UFC champion, made a big name in UFC, then came to wrestling. And, as a wrestling fan, I didn't watch the UFC that much back then. But as a wrestling fan, I was like, oh, this guy's got what it takes. And he did. I enjoyed his matches a lot.
Well, UFC was still in its infancy, of course, and I wasn't really into it, but I had seen a few of like the videos or whatever, rented them from the video store, as a kid, and checked them out. And I tell you what, imagine it would be a lot bigger deal nowadays if it was, a UFC fighter coming over. Of course, a precursor to even, dare I say, what's going on with Ronda Rousey right now. So, yeah, Ken Shamrock's a guy that I'm surprised never got that main event push either.
He got that Intercontinental title a couple times, which was, and he even won it a couple times, and he held that for a while, I think, and he even got that, he was in that corporation thing, and
He was a part of all that too, and
but like you said, he's just another I don't like this term, but buried beneath that umbrella of the big guys at the top of those groups, Undertaker and Rock and stuff. They just got caught, underneath the shadow and didn't come out, I guess.
I think what it boils down to with him is that bottom line, he was a fighter. Guy. I think he did take the craft of pro wrestling very seriously, though, too. I think him and, Dan Severn at that time did. And, of course, Shamrock ended up, I think, being a lot better worker, as far as on that stage. And, of course, it was probably politics. Hunter probably didn't like him, I'm sure. So,
with the subject of the Attitude Era, emphasis on attitude, Ken Shamrock had major attitude. He's a loose cannon, not to take that phrase from another wrestler, but he was.
Well, he brought that legitimacy. You know what I mean? It's something that they're craving nowadays, with how big UFC is now. And you just look at the impact that Brock has made. And if only Ken was anywhere near his prime at all. He's a little, he's a little over the hill now to bring him in for a program like that, with Brock. But wouldn't that have been something? 10 years ago, maybe it would have drew something, if Brock hadn't went to the NFL or, something like that.
Yeah, as a wrestling fan back then, like I said, I knew a little bit of the UFC. I had, heard he said, she said, keep you informed maybe. But I liked whenever, like you said, Dan the Beast Severn came over and had a program with Ken Shamrock, and it was just like these two MMA guys wrestling in our world, and it was just that was attitude. That's what hooked me and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. That's what it was all about, and I don't know. There's so many moments we can go over. So many unsung heroes of the time. You talking about the year 1998. There was a lot of guys from the top to the bottom of the card. They even had their own little light heavyweight thing going on at the time. You're talking about the guys like the guys in Kai and Tai, like Taka and
Brian Christopher.
Right, yeah, they were trying to have their own division like that to kind of rival WCW's, which in all actuality at the time was a complete joke compared to WCW's. But
the cruiserweight division is its own show in itself, really.
Yeah, and that's I don't know, and we won't get too much into that, of course, but. There were a lot of things that stick out in my mind as far as moments. But before we go into some of our more favorite moments, I still want to talk about maybe a couple more guys that maybe I'm forgetting. Vito's or anybody that you had in mind?
Yeah. One of the things I did like back then was the Nation of Domination, and
right.
Then DX, they had their own little thing, but the guys that came out of that, D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry came out of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, no, Mark Henry, long tenured.
Sexual Chocolate.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Attitude.
He, we could have a whole show about Mark Henry, Sexual Chocolate moments. That defined the Attitude Era for sure. Unfortunately,
his moments definitely pushed the envelope, but it definitely defines what is Attitude Era. I'm not gonna go, like you said, there are horrible details, some that include Mae Young, but we're not going there for sure.
Right, and that's kind of what defined that era. In a way, all the shock value. Is things that stick out, as far as moments go. There's a lot of things that were just done for the sake of doing them. I want to challenge you to something though. If you go back and you watch any kind of Attitude Era stuff on the network or YouTube or whatever you do, go. Not trying to plug anything. I'm just saying, if you're gonna if listening to this show makes you want to go back and revisit and rekindle this era, like we did. If you notice, go back and watch one of those old Raws, especially from the Attitude Era. There will not be one clean finish the whole night. There will be run-ins in every single match. That's Vince Russo booking 101. Yeah. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's one of the things I didn't like, though, if I could just kind of touch on that for a second. That should be a whole nother topic one day. Things that sucked Russo. About different eras.
Crappy stuff Russo did. Be like, let's see, NGNWR on a pole. So.
I'm actually a Russo defender to a point. And the only reason being is that, love him or hate him, that most like beloved, year to 2 year time frame that he was booking TV was, love him or hate him, it was must-see TV every week. You know, I mean, you can't deny that. That he was the guy. You know, even though there was a lot of run-ins or whatever, it was a sign of the times, and the style of it. You know, you can argue that it was hectic, but it definitely kept things rolling, and kept the show to where everybody had something to do. Whoa, I don't know what just happened there, but you know, and that's the thing. That's one of the things that he touched about in his book is that, like, he, you know, I've read both of his books, by the way. I'm a Russo mark.
Sorry,
but, you know, another thing you'll notice, though, if you go back and watch those shows, yeah, there's run-ins in every match. But if you look at the roster from that time in the locker room, the whole roster had something to do, you know, pretty much on that show. He was able to somehow squeeze in, you know, 40 guys or whatever into that 2-hour show. You know, so.
Yeah. Another thing is, you know, I say the guys that came out of the groups, you know, it's like Road Dogg. You know, he came out and, you know, what's it? Badass Billy Gunn, is that, can I say that on here?
Yeah, I guess I can let you get away with that.
Yeah, another thing that, you know, I mentioned those two, which leads me to tag teams. The tag teams back then were great. You know, that's crazy entertaining with them and the Headbangers. And
the Headbangers are out there. Yeah, there was a few other teams. You know, you had all that. You know, the end of all the gang warfare thing going on with the Disciples of Apocalypse, and you had the Nation of Domination splitting off into teams. You also, that was the end days of the Road Warriors, unfortunately. You know, there as well, before Hawk passed. That's a whole nother thing too. You know, we were talking earlier about his
decline. His decline to getting off of TV and
the somewhat tastefulness of Vince Russo's booking there of exploiting his addiction. Of course, that's a whole nother subject for another show. You know, we're talking about exploitation and wrestling. They kind of go hand in hand. You know, anyone will tell you that.
Goldust, you know.
Right? Goldust had a big part in that whole thing, too. He flew the flag. He was a precursor to the Attitude Era. We can't really even mention this, you know. How could I forget?
Yeah, Goldust had the start, you know, he was the weird, bizarre one, but in Attitude Era, he got weird. Remember that?
Right. Well, him pushing that, you know, the whole... you know, gender bending, you know, thing was a precursor even to that, and then he even got weirder during the Attitude Era. We've only got a little bit. I want to kind of wrap this up here with you, Vito, because we're going to go to a break and then we're going to finish the show out. I want to talk about something with you. We're talking about one of our favorite moments, the higher power angle.
Oh yeah, the corporate ministry.
Right. Well, they drug this whole thing out where Stephanie was kidnapped and being terrorized by the Undertaker, and it was this whole thing to get Stone Cold and this ruse, and Undertaker said he was reporting to this higher power, and I wish we had so much more time to get into it. I shouldn't have even brought it up because I'll talk about it for another 5 minutes. But
yeah, that whole when the two came together, corporation and the ministry, they sucked in all that talent, and there was the higher power that everyone was looking for.
It's me, Austin. It's me, Austin, you son of a bitch.
It was me all along.
It was me all along.
Vince.
Anyway, yeah, it's something that I'm really surprised. Like, I tried to find it on YouTube, and it's just so hard to find. You would think that that would stick out in more people's mind as like a big thing. It wasn't just that. It was the whole angle. afterwards, Stone Cold comes out. When they announced Stone Cold as the new CEO of the WWE, Linda and Stephanie actually came out and announced it. I swear it was one of the biggest pops I've ever heard in wrestling, period. That's why I want to go back and see it mainly, just because that pop, when they say, here's our new CEO, and then there's just like silence, for a second, but everybody knew, you knew what it was going to be, but you didn't know, and it was just that moment, like it just goes silent, and then just all of a sudden, and then the place just erupted.
And then, you bring Stephanie, and, Vince and Shane were doing the corporation, and then that led to, the towards the end, right?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of starting to build towards the end of that whole angle for sure. And before we wrap this up, while we're on the subject of Austin, I knew we weren't gonna. I knew I said I wasn't gonna talk about this, but just for the record, my first. I went to some WWE shows when I was like a little kid in the 80s, but I don't really count those. My first real show I ever went to was back in 1998 at the Arco Arena in Sacramento. It was a Raw taping, and I swear to you, when Austin's music hit, the building shook. It was so loud. It's still probably the loudest thing I've ever heard as far as an ovation in my life, and I've been to a couple WrestleManias and concerts, whatever you want to is the loudest, most thunderous thing I ever heard was Stone Cold's glass breaking and the pop that came out of the Arco Arena that night. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Stone Cold personified attitude. The attitude was Vince versus Stone Cold. In the background.
That was most of it, that was a big part of it. And they kept that storyline going throughout most of it. And I swear, I got to make the show longer, because we just don't have enough time to cover everything.
We're going to need Attitude Era episode 5B.
Actually, you know what? Let's talk some more. Let's take a break and screw it. We'll talk some more about it because I don't have anything else to talk about to wrap up the show. We'll delve into a little bit more of our favorite moments to close it out, but we're going to take a quick break and be right back with you. You're listening to NGNWR, No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling Radio. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Stuff's getting heavy here on NGNWR. You know, I got my man Vito The Ref hanging out. We're talking about the Attitude Era, Unsung Heroes, and our other favorite moments. It's been a pretty awesome experience so far. Wouldn't you say, Vito? We're kind of wrapping things up here, but
Yeah, this has been a real pleasure reliving our
our adolescence.
Yeah, our older teens, high school area, I'm thinking.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. It started when I was in junior high through high school. In closing here, we'll kind of talk about when the Attitude Era ended, which is an arguable point, because some will say that something called the Ruthless Aggression Era started in about 2002, whatever that means.
Ruthless aggression.
Right? But even throughout the beginning of that era, they were still doing things that were Attitude Era-esque, if I remember right. Even after that, you had, Eric Bischoff when he was doing the whole HLA thing.
Yeah, the Attitude Era started whenever, Brett left, like we said earlier, and Mr. McMahon was born, and I believe that the Attitude Era ended somewhere along the lines of when Vince bought WCW. Because the only reason why the Attitude Era even started is because Nitro was stomping Raw in the ratings, so they needed something to get that
to
done.
Ramp up that competition. Yeah, that's right. But one could argue, though, that its influence even continued on into the so-called Ruthless Aggression Era. Like I said, yeah, you had the HLA thing, if you don't know what that is, that was Eric Bischoff's hot lesbian action that he had on Raw every week. He also had the Katie Vick angle around that era.
Yeah, Triple H and Kane's thing where there was
necrophilia, Katie Vick angle. If you don't know what we're referring to, look it up, kids.
Kids, Google that.
Kids, maybe not, but folks, yeah, you adult folks will want to definitely look into the whole Katie Vick if you don't know about that. And I would say shortly after that was when I think it ended, because in the next couple of years after that, that's when it really started to go to what we know now as the PG era, which may have already passed us by. I think we're in a different era now, and I don't know what they're calling it.
I'd say, like you said, Attitude led to Aggression, which led to, Stale, then, was it Linda, who gave us the PG era?
Right. PG era somehow happened, for years and years and years. And now we're in this really strange, I'm really hoping that it's going to dare I say competition era, dare I say, a re-legitimate era, maybe even one could argue that it's the indie era. When you take a look at the roster nowadays, up and down, you look at who are the main players in the company. Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Cesaro, all these guys, indie darlings, Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, this NXT thing is really bringing a lot of like you said, the indie guys. The guys we only read about on the internet and Google on YouTube. Like you said, the Daniel Bryans, and now we got Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, all those guys who put their name down on the internet,
I think you could definitely say that it's its own era, this indie era, and it was all started by, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it all started with CM Punk,
Fortunately.
and then you have, and then of course with his success, and then with Daniel Bryan's success, that's what's been the basis of these guys coming up. These indie darlings. Like I just mentioned, your Rollinses of the world and your Ambroses.
Yeah, and CM Punk. Yeah, CM Punk.
I don't even want to get into
I'm a
CM
huge
Punk.
CM Punk mark. Just let
I used to be. I'll admit it, but that's a whole nother subject for another day. It's really something that and then like you said, we were arguing somewhat about when you can argue though when the Attitude Era ended, but I think that you're more along the lines right. I think what I was talking about was just kind of like the transitional period.
Yeah.
Definitely when WCW was bought, that definitely signaled a sign of the times that era was coming to an end, and that there was going to be a transition. But there was plenty of controversial stuff after that, though.
Yeah, the transition brought Attitude on its own, with ECW and WCW, with, like you said, the families gathering their companies. That's what I was leading to earlier, but... another post-Attitude Era transitional period thing that you could argue was still left over from the Attitude Era was like the whole Tori Wilson's dad. And Dawn Marie, dare we go into that? No.
There was a lot of things that were holdovers for the next couple years before it actually transitioned into PG. Be really interesting to go back and actually break down when that moment happened. Was it John Cena winning the title?
It's funny.
Was that when we went PG? It's hard to say.
It's funny you mention the Attitude, and there's this wrestling that's changing now to the indies. It's Triple H. He came from the Attitude Era, and he's changing things, and the future is bright with this one.
Absolutely. Well, Vito, it's been awesome, man, having you on the show this week. We talked all about the Attitude Era and what we loved about it, a couple of the things that we didn't like about it. But, we talked wrestling, which is what we love, and that's what we're here for, right?
That's right. Wrestling. We breathe wrestling. We eat wrestling. We sleep wrestling.
This guy knows his stuff, and that's why I had him on the show today. Vito The Ref, and The Brand. You've been listening to NGNWR, No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling Radio. We had fun with you today. I want to thank you for being on the show, Vito.
I really, really love it.
Say it again. I don't think I quite got you in the mic.
I said thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our time.
It was a pleasure having you here. It's been way awesome. We'll catch back up with you guys next week. Hopefully there'll be some more newsworthy things to talk about. But we had fun revisiting the past here on this show. We're going to do some special things like that from time to time. And I want to thank you for listening. NGNWR, NGNWR, right? No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling Radio. This is The Brand. I'm signing out. We'll catch you next week.